Okay, at this point we have almost all aspects of composition tool covered, and we have still yet to talk about randomization, so let's do just that. And randomization is about collections and prefabs. Now, first of all, let's start with the collections. So what it is? What is the collection? Collection is the set of one or several objects, and when the collection placed in the scene, one random object from this list will be selected. Now, it is important to understand that randomization will happen only once at server or mission start. If the mission is saved and then loaded, the randomization doesn't occur again. It will happen only once at the mission start. Okay, let's take a look at how those collections actually work. Let's press F7 in order to get into the collection library. Now, this library is similar to the object library with one difference, and it is that this tree doesn't have config entries. It actually have entries from the object library. So as you can see, there are categories, and you can see items that you added, or you have those added by default in those categories. You can of course see your own categories that you added yourself, and it is possible to disable grouping to have all those objects in a plain list, and you can of course use search. For example, let's try and see all the barrels in there. Okay, and now let's try and make our first collection. First of all, we will need to make at least one category. And we do this as in every other library. Like this, specifying the name and pressing the create button. And now let's make the collection itself. And we do this by specifying the name for it. Let it be like something rather generic again. And hit the create button. Now we have our collection made, and we need to fill it with objects. Well, what we can do here is try and add some. Let's try and add some garbage, for example. We actually can take those pallets. They will work as the garbage. Those pallets will work as well. Maybe we don't need items like this. Maybe let's take those pallets as well. We need some garbage. Okay, here we go. The garbage line, yes, it will go. Garbage square 5. Nice. Bags, pallets, washing machine, junk, tires. Yes, we want tires. No, we don't want containers. And this looks like garbage as well as this one. Well, I think it will be enough. So we have several items in this list, and let's just rename it to something like this. Would be more descriptive name for this type of collection. And now let's actually try and build it. Let's go to the build mode. Let's hold the shift and right mouse button in order to switch to the collection library. As you can see, we have our collection already under the cursor, and we can actually try and place it somewhere like here. I will hold the control in order to place several items, several copies of this collection. And as you can see, randomization will happen immediately. Random items will be selected from this list and placed. And as you can see with the garbage, it works pretty much perfect. Just a pile of different garbages that we can actually use. Those piles are of almost the same size, kinda the same size, and although we have some clipping issues here and there, it for the most part okay. And those collections, they work just like as normal items, so we can actually rotate them, so they will look a bit different from each other. Now let's try and rotate them a little bit, a certain way. I think this would be enough. And there is a way to see how the randomization actually works. We can rebuild the project to do that. And in order to actually rebuild the project, we need to hold Control, Shift, and press E. Now, as you can see, all the objects are rebuilt, and of course, those collections they are rebuilt as well, and the random item will be selected, as you can see. So with this technique, we can have a certain level of randomization. Okay, now we have a collection covered, and let's talk about the second part of randomization, and it is the prefab. Well, the idea behind prefabs is exactly the same as the collections, but instead of objects, prefabs have compositions in there. So in order to show the idea, we need to have several compositions ready, and let's start off by doing the first one. Let's press Shift F to place new composition, empty one, and let it be like of size 10. Yes, it's okay. Now let's place several items in there, like this shed, and let's place maybe some fences. And you know what? I will fast forward this process, so just not to take too much of your time, and we will finish those compositions faster. Okay, now as you can see, we have made a composition. Let's now save it to my category. And what would be the name? Let's try and do something like this. Version 1. Now let's save it. Okay, now we have our composition saved. And in order to actually show how the prefab works, let's make a composition that is similar to this one, but still there will be small changes to it. And we can actually just copy the composition itself, and let's paste it. And as you can see, it's just similar, and we can start up work faster. Let's fast forward the creation of this one as well. Okay, now we have a second composition. Let's save it as well. Let's make the similar name with the version 2. And let's save it. And why not to go with another one? Oops. Need actually to copy it. Like this. And let's fast forward again. Okay, now we have third composition. Let's save it as well. Version 3. Now let's actually go and make our prefab. Okay, and in order to actually do this, let's open up the prefab library by pressing F8. And the prefab library is quite same as the collection library, but instead of objects, we can see compositions here, and we can see our 3 compositions in this list as well. Now let's make it a category. Let's create it, and let's add element, the prefab, like this, and let's add items to this prefab by selecting them from the left and pressing the enter button here. Okay, now let's try and build it, and we do this as we do with the collections. Let's go to the prefab mode, and we have our prefab. As you can see, if we move the mouse around, the preview will be rebuilt, and it is already you can already see the randomization happen. Okay, let's place it. And if we press Ctrl-Shift-E to rebuild the whole project, we will see that random composition is selected to be built. And there's few more remarks that I would like to tell about the randomization. And first of all, with collections and with the prefabs, you can have multiply copies of the same item in the list. For example, let's find those tires as an example. We can add multiply copies of it, and this will effectively raise the chance that those tires will be selected. Now, if you press the Ctrl-Shift-E in order to rebuild the project, you will see that the tires will spawn much more frequently than everything else. And the same applies to the prefabs, so we can have multiply copies of the same shed, and this will raise the chance of this particular shed spawn more frequently. And the last thing that I want to mention is that it is perfectly fine to combine collections and prefabs all together. And in order to do this, let's add some collections to these compositions we have here. In order to do that, we just simply add several of those to our composition. Just a little bit of the garbage here and there will make our picture look better. And now, as you can see, we will have additional layer of randomization here.